Hi everybody, my name is Matt Keller and I work with a group called XPRIZE. We're based in Los Angeles, California. And sorry I couldn't be there today. I had really wanted to come, and as some of you know, I worked for the United Nations World Food Program for a number of years, a long time ago, and just couldn't make it. So here I am in video, and I hope this is interesting to you. So let me tell you a little bit about XPRIZE, who we are and what we do. We are based in Los Angeles, and what we do is we put together large-scale competitions around grand challenges in the world. So we identify some of the world's grand challenges, and we invite the crowd to come in and solve those problems. And we first started off by doing a space XPRIZE. The founder of XPRIZE had studied aeronautical engineering at MIT and had always wanted to be an astronaut. When he realized he couldn't do it, he had read a book called The Spirit of St. Louis, which was about Charles Lindbergh and his flight from New York to Paris. And it turns out that Charles Lindbergh had won a prize of $25,000 flying from New York to Paris. And the founder of XPRIZE, Peter Diamandis, read that book. He said, wow, my takeaways are threefold. One is that the unlikeliest person, Charles Lindbergh, won this prize. He was a 23-year-old mail clerk flying mail from Joplin, Missouri to Kansas City, and he beat all of the great aviators of the day coming home from World War I. Second was that the teams competing for that $25,000 spent a total of $1 million to win that prize. So the return on investment was astronomical. The third was, boy, that model hasn't been around in a long time. What if we started something like that? So we started XPRIZE, the first prize being a space XPRIZE, which was won by a guy named Burt Rutan, funded by Paul Allen. And that Spaceship One that won the Space XPRIZE hangs in the Smithsonian Museum next to Charles Lindbergh's Spirit of St. Louis. So that helped catalyze a market of spaceflight. And what you have now is Elon Musk's SpaceX, and you have Richard Branson's Virgin Galactic. So you have this nascent space industry that was a result of the first XPRIZE. We've done other things. We've done oceans cleanup XPRIZes, where we challenge teams from around the world to develop technology that would separate oil from water faster than the industry. We've done XPRIZes around carbon capture and oceans mapping. The one that I'm doing is called the Global Learning XPRIZE, which is the first kind of, I'll call it a social science XPRIZE instead of a hard science XPRIZE that we've done. And it's a $15 million prize sponsored by Elon Musk that challenges people from around the world to develop software and content that can bring children from zero literacy to literacy in reading, writing, and math on their own and with each other. So the thinking is, can children who have no access to school around the world be given something so dynamic, so inferential, so intuitive that they can't help but learn? And the reason that we do this, the reason that we consider this a grand challenge, is that well over 100 million children in the world never make it to school because school is too far, it's too dangerous to get to. Another 250 to 350 million children go to school and they leave without ever having learned to read or write a word. So the question is, can you develop technology that is so good that you give it to a child and she takes it and she can't help but learn? And that is the reason we're doing this. If you build more schools and train more teachers, you're never going to reach the kind of scale that you need to reach in order to affect the lives of those kids. So we put that challenge out in 2014. 700 teams from 55 countries around the world applied to compete. And then we got down to the top 5 last year. We picked those top 5. Each of those top 5 teams received $1 million. And they were required to open source both their code and content. So it's an open source competition. We took those 5 applications, and those teams, one was from the United Kingdom, 2 were from the United States, 1 was from South Korea, and 1 is from India. We took those 5 applications, put them onto 2,500 tablets that were given to us from Google, and put them into the hands of 2,500 kids in 141 very, very remote villages in rural Tanzania. We did that in December. So these kids who have no access to school, where you get out of the WFP car and you walk another 5 kilometers to get to the village, now have these tablets. And I have to say that anecdotally I've seen, I've gone to 30 or 40 villages now, and kids who are living at the end of the world are using those tablets and they're tracing letters on the tablet. They're writing letters in the sand. They're sounding out letters, they're sounding out words, they're doing basic mathematics, and it's all because of these tablets. And some of the knock-on effects are even more interesting. We have reports of kids who are bathing more because when they use the tablets, they think they're in school. We have reports of kids teaching other kids. We have reports of disabled kids who never have made it to school are now learning because of the tablet. We have reports of kids who dropped out of school because they were too embarrassed to be in school because they couldn't learn and the teacher would yell at them, the kids would make fun of them. They have the tablet, and because the tablet is an infinitely patient teacher, they're learning to read and they're going back to school. So some of these knock-on effects are astounding. And when we're done in a year, we're going to find out what the tally is. And the team that brings their cohort of kids up to the highest level of literacy in reading, writing, and math will win the remaining $10 million XPRIZE. In the meantime, we're getting investors to come in and look at these teams to invest so that they can get to scale in a way that allows for a market to develop. Our objective is to catalyze a market by proving the basic supposition that children left on their own can teach themselves how to do these things. This has never been proven. It's the largest scale project ever. Nobody's ever done this before, which is a little bit crazy, but kind of fun. And so the World Bank is looking at us. We're partnering with WFP and UNESCO on the ground. Lots of UN agencies and lots of private investors, including Google, are watching this very closely to see what happens. And what we think will happen, what we want to have happen, is prove our supposition, and then people say, there's a market for this. Every single parent around the world, if the device is cheap enough and it really does produce learning outcomes, will invest in something that will be given to their children, thus enabling scale to happen very quickly. So our objective is to catalyze that market. So, you guys are talking about food for tech for food, and it's a really interesting notion. When I was talking to Sandra and we were talking about this, and I talked to a little bit with Rob and some others at WFP. This is not that different. What we're trying to do, what we're trying to incentivize in terms of self-learning, has a general application across many different areas. Let's say that you are in a situation, you're in a Syrian refugee camp, you've got thousands and thousands of older kids, older people, even people in their early 20s, who are looking to be trained in something that will get them out of that situation, that will give them access to a job where they can actually be self-sufficient. And my belief and the belief of us at XPRIZE and others like Elon Musk that are funding what we're doing, and friends of mine at Google and other places really believe that the future is going to be self-taught. That the people that you're working with in your space, those men and women who are refugees, who may be older, as opposed to the kids that we're working with who are younger, what is the technology that's so inferential, so dynamic, so intuitive, that when I give you this, and it could be a tablet, it could be a teddy bear, it could be, whatever it is, or it could be a holograph, this holograph mentor that teaches you how to be a carpenter, that teaches you how to be a better farmer, that teaches you how to be an electrician, whatever the case may be. That self-learning device, that self-contained self-learning device, is going to be the way that we get to scale, because bringing teachers in and building schools is important, but it doesn't scale in the way that we need it to scale. So I think that's the future of education, not just for young kids, I think for older people as well. We're doing partnerships with the Queen Rania Foundation now, who are using our software in refugee camps in Jordan for young Syrian kids. The team software that's being used in the XPRIZE is also being used in Liberia. It's being used in Pakistan. Education for All initiative is adopting some of these solutions. We're having an impact summit in Washington, D.C. in 2 weeks, where we're inviting lots of investors in the World Bank and others to come in and meet the teams and understand why their solutions are so good. And because it's open source, what I hope will happen, and what I hope you guys will do and look at, is build on what's been done in a way that allows for generations of people to benefit. What we're doing in terms of making these solutions open sourced is contributing to the public good, the common good, that can be used for a long time to come. So I think, in some ways, this is a moonshot. We have this convergence of research in neuroscience, of technology, and of artificial intelligence and machine learning all coming together at the same time. And we think that this Global Learning XPRIZE is going to expedite the future and get us to a place where, again, every child, every person in a refugee situation who desires to learn, who wants to learn, but has no access to learn, is going to be able to do that. And the day is going to come when you're going to be able to look at the people that you work with and you're going to be able to give them something that serves as a mentor, that grasps how they learn, and has an infinite amount of content at their disposal so they can become anything they ever wanted to be. So thank you very much. And I hope you guys have a great day. And I appreciate you taking the time to listen to this. And my email is